For those who don't know me, my name is MC Ebone, the voice of the culture. If you need a voice, I'm your choice. I'm going to be the master of ceremonies, kicking things off. But before I do that, I got to bring out my brother who's going to lay the foundation of what's going on. Yo, Rich, where you at, brother? This is one. Give him a round of applause as he comes up. This is one brother who's been killing the game as a serial entrepreneur. Obviously, family first, but he always shares the gems. And if you do not know him, today you're going to learn more about him. He is one guy that I respect so much that when I hosted the World Cup, I made sure I went to him. I got one of his T-shirts to show him how much I love him, and I made sure I rocked that T-shirt on one of the biggest stages I ever performed. So that was just me showing you my token of love, but give him another round of applause. And before we bring out the man that even, let's sit down, we'll get into over here. Junior's not playing. Everyone has their name on the mic. There we go, Rich. And you know, when your name is Rich, you're kind of blessed right away off the top, right? Like, it's just standard right there. But I want to talk about what you have been doing as an entrepreneur. I want to talk about what you and Junior has been doing as creating a safe space for men to be able to come get their thoughts of. I obviously have a busy schedule. I haven't been able to be there, but I see the work that you guys are doing online. And before we bring Junior out, let's just make sure you dig deep into it so people get to know who you are.
Check, check. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Rich. I have a creative space in Mississauga called Gallery 223. I don't want to go too much into me tonight. Tonight is about Junior. So I'll touch a little bit first on something that we've been doing at my space recently, which is a monthly men's meeting. I know some of you guys in the room here tonight have been attending. We usually do it on the last Thursday of every month, but Junior came to me and let me know that he's been doing these monthly meetings, I believe since like 2021 or so, where like-minded men who are business owners, fathers, entrepreneurs, people working a 9 to 5, just get a chance to come together once a month and just talk about what's going on in their life, how we can assist each other, how we can network, and just a space to kind of release and build together. So that's what we've been doing on the last Thursday of every month at my space. And of course, we're here today. Popularity is a Sport, Junior's first book. Give it up for Junior one time, writing a book. That's crazy. So we've been doing a podcast, me, Junior, and a friend of ours, Corey, together called Code Switch. We've been talking about just societal issues, relationships, different topics. So we decided to use today as an opportunity to just celebrate Junior, talk about the content of his book, and just go through it together. So yeah.
So yes, ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, the reason why we are here, I'm gonna ask if everyone could please rise out of their seats, as this man that we're about to announce and bring out needs no introduction. He's a man that wears many hats, as you can tell right now, looking at him wearing that hat. But ladies and gentlemen, we're adding an author to his list of things, to his resume, to his catalog. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to the one and only Junior Ofori. Yeah, no, make some noise. Make some noise all the way. Make some noise. Make some noise. Yes, sir. My brother. So yeah, Junior, just make sure you turn on your mic. And honestly, me seeing Mom was everything to me, because for those who don't know, me and Junior grew up together. We've literally known each other from birth, from like zero, from Pampers. That's my mom. I'm her son as well too. So seeing her here, their prayers are what keep us grounded through all of the hardships and all of the good and the bad. And honestly, a lot of us chose the entrepreneurship route, and it wasn't easy at all, but our moms trusted us. And Mom, you know, we apologize for all of the nonsense from earlier, but it's paid off, right? She said it's okay. As long as we have your blessing, we are here and we're doing okay. We're authors now, right? So it's good to go. But Junior, my brother,
My guy.
how you feeling?
Good.
God bless you, all the work. Of course, like I said, you guys have been sharing the space, so Rich, just take it away and kick off.
All right, so I want to get into it. I'm sure a lot of people are here. How many people here have purchased the book? There you go. So you got a good support system, people that believe in you, people that want to know what you have to offer and what you have to say. So what I want to know, as someone who talks to you on a regular basis, when did you start thinking about writing this two-part question? When did you start thinking about writing this book, and why popularity is a sport?
Wow, that's a deep question. So I feel like I've always thought about writing a book. And just like most people always think about things that they want to do in their life. but we always kind of visualize those things as something we're going to do later on in life. So, hey, when I get to this point, then I will write a book, or when I get to this point, then I'll public speak, or whatever the case may be. So, for me, that was just one of those things on my bucket list that I knew eventually I would get to. I knew my life is obviously still going on, and I'm experiencing things every day, and there's always more stories. But last year was very difficult for me, but it like it was, medium bad for, for most people. But what I started doing is I started journaling. And through that process of journaling, I started realizing like, wow, like sometimes you would relive some traumas or some issues or some good times, and it would take you to this like journey. So I started truly enjoying that. And it got to a point when I would look at my notes and I'm like, wow, I think I have enough for a book. And Augustine, a great friend of ours, family member as well, who kind of like put the battery on my back and said, "Yo, you should just keep writing, and then when you get to a point where you feel like, hey, you have a good body of work, just put it out." And that's what I did. The middle of the last year, I just kind of just kept on writing, and at the end of the year, I said, "You know what? It's time to do a book. These stories need to be told," and yeah, we did it.
Now that's dope, and I think that's something that needs to be celebrated because a lot of us have ideas, but the action of actually bringing something tangible into this world to offer is something to be celebrated for sure. Um, so I'm just gonna go into it. I listened to the book, of course, amazing read. Chapter one, right away, you get into the importance of reputation
Right.
and the importance of guarding that reputation. From your personal experience, your entrepreneurial business experience, at what point did you learn how important reputation was?
Reputation is one of those things where I think reputation is kind of the true law of attraction. Because everybody will say the law of attraction is, hey, I have this mindset and I'm going to think this certain way and then things are going to come to me. But if you have a good reputation or if you have a good name, things are going to come to you because you have a good reputation. People are going to refer other people to you because they know your reputation is solid. And that's what grows your brand. That's what grows your name. That's what grows your likeness overall. So when you think about that, that's what makes reputation important because that's how you grow a business. When you think like there's no real other way. If you do things right and you have a good reputation, your business will grow.
No, well said. Whoever said, "Wow, thank you." That was just and Rich to piggy app because when I read chapter one, it reminded me how long we've been grinding. Like we've been doing this for so long. Like if you know about the ACN days and the calls and the get in the meetings and yeah, the laughs, it was serious. I had people in the basement, lined up chairs. We had to figure this out. And I was telling him, bro, I remember I think a couple years ago, I didn't realize I was still getting ACN checks. I was like, what the hell? This is crazy. I'm like, yo, this shit really worked. Like it was like, oh my goodness. But when you kick that off and when you go back, like even deep into 5 years ago, when we think about it, pandemic was 5 years ago, world shut down. How much does your experience and what you went through in all these trials and errors trying to figure things out shape you into the man you are to be able to be like, yo, no matter what losses, no matter what happens, I'm gonna keep going. Because that's the hardest part. Everyone's gonna go through L's and W's. Not one person here. Like everyone has to go through it. But when it keeps happening and it happens from some of your closest people, your family, your friends, people that you expected to handle business correctly,
Right.
bro, it takes a toll on you.
Yeah.
And I talked about it earlier when we started how mental health is a big thing, but people think that just because they have their thing going on every Thursday, once a month, they're going through stuff as well too,
Oh,
and
for
they
sure.
still got to wake up and smile and act like not act like it, but understand that let's make a room for men. But how much has that shaped you to be able to do what you're doing?
I think especially when I think about my men's meeting, like a lot of people kind of assume that you're doing a men's meeting to support men because you're in a perfect situation. No, you're doing a men's meeting to support men to understand that I've gone through some of the things that you've gone through a little bit earlier, and I might be able to help you a little bit better. Is that fair? Can you guys hear me? So it's not an angle of perfection, it's an angle of growth, if you will. I've just done a little bit more and I failed a little bit more, so you don't have to. And that's really what it is. Like when we think about anybody who's truly successful, the goal is to learn as fast as possible. There's some people that take 10 years to learn. This is why their results might take 20. And there's some people that might learn in 3. This is why their results are a little bit smaller. It's shrunken a little bit. So when you think about it, if you had, like, let's just say hypothetically, I want you to look at it like this. If God said you have to lose this much to win, how fast would you get to that loss? If
One more time.
God said you have to lose this much, he says you want abundance of this much, but you have to lose this much to get there. How fast would it take you to get there? Some people would say, hey, you know what? I don't want to experience that much pain. So it might take me 5 years. And then there's some people who say, you know what? I'm going to do it in 1 year. Like I'm going to do this right away. That's the difference between the time frame of how people or when people get there or not, essentially.
No, well said. Well said, 100%. And then I guess tying back to reputation in chapter 1 as well, you speak about honesty and the importance of honesty in business, which I guess kind of, if you listen to what's put out there in business, a lot of times it's positioned as if you can't be an honest businessman. You got to do what you got to do to get ahead.
Right.
I don't necessarily subscribe to that, but you talk a lot about the importance about being honest and where that can take you.
I think that's a fallacy. Like people saying you have to, because you're only going to do so well for a short period of time. Like there is no longevity to that. But the truth of the matter is, the higher up you go, like I did a mastermind with somebody who was a billionaire, and he was just a stickler about so much things, like every little detail. And that's just how he operated. And everybody around him operated the same way. You start to realize there's levels in business. There's some levels where people are going to operate a certain way, and that's fine. But the higher you get, you have to be honest. If you're not honest and you're blackballed, it's going to be tough for you to get back in those circles, because the circles get smaller the higher you go. So you really don't want to be that person.
Facts, and I think just to piggy up, chapter 1 is so serious, guys. Trust me, when you, for those who know, it's serious. Like when I listened to the audiobook, I said, "Yo, Junior's not playing." Like it hit home. I played it again, and one thing that you talked about, everybody knows communication is key. If you're in a relationship, you know communication is key. 9 times out of 10, women is always going to remind you that communication is key. And sometimes, as men, everyone's laughing. It's the truth, right? We sometimes we feel like we're communicating and it's being understood. And
Right.
there's one point in that book where you talk about how the message is getting delivered. You
Right.
may feel like you're delivering the message correctly, but somebody is taking it in another way.
Right.
Why did you feel like talking about that in that chapter and just going from your own story, and obviously like you're reevaluating what you've been through, and it takes a lot for a man to be like, yo, you know what? Even though I feel like I communicated correctly, this is where I messed up. And I feel like you put your pride and ego aside, and you gave us the raw in that book in the first
Right.
chapter, and it just hit home run right away. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
locked in.
And one thing that I can say is, like, when it comes to communication, bro, I'm not sitting here saying I wrote a book so I'm perfect on communication. I'm not that great at communication. I am always getting better at communicating. One thing that I'm starting to understand is, when it comes to communication, there's one aspect of communication that people need to take into consideration: transparency. Transparency is a different level of communication. Why? Because it is now giving somebody the opportunity to fully understand the full picture. I'm going to tell you even the things that you don't necessarily need to know, but just in case you want to know, this is the whole picture. And just being fully transparent about what it is. It's just smoother, man. It's just smoother.
And I think, like, just to piggyback off of E-Bone, we're talking about communication versus effective
Communication.
communication. And then
Correct.
you go into listening
Right.
versus active
Listening.
listening, which, especially as men, I feel like a lot of us, like I know myself, just to give like a little bit of a personal background, I got married in 2015, And when I was with my wife, I feel like that's when I learned what active listening was. I feel like as men sometimes we listen, but we're not necessarily my personal story. Not necessarily. I didn't really understand what active listening was and the most effective styles of communication. So, where did you learn that, and what does that look like for you in business?
It's funny. I actually have a question for you. How did you get over that barrier when you realized that was something that, you might have not been good at, something that you struggled with? How did you get over that hurdle with your wife?
So before you answer, we're gonna make him answer so you don't piggyback on that answer. I'm not allowing that because I see what you did there, and we're holding everyone accountable, right? So that was a nice try. That was good. That was good. You're gonna answer his question first,
I'll
and
come
then the
back to
man
it.
with experience is gonna talk about that first. I'm not having this, my bro. I have to make sure it's.
So when it comes to active listening for me, especially like let me use the business point of view. What I said in the book when I referenced it, I said the person who asks the most questions controls the conversation. It's very important to be interested instead of trying to be interesting. You understand what I'm saying? Like when you actually meet somebody, and I have a lot of friends in here who do that really well. There's actually a man sitting in the front row who does this extremely well. Ask all the questions just to genuinely understand and learn who this person is. I think there's such a beauty with networking because if you don't know something, you learn. But if you do know something, you relate. There's something magical about that. Like just think about that experience. I met somebody I didn't know, and now we have a bond because of either we're understanding each other or we have similarities. It's huge. And it only comes from actively listening when you're having that dialogue with these people, right?
You see how God works, and there's no way I thought he was gonna come up with that, and he hit. This guy is good. Junior is good. But yes, let's get to your question now that you had for Rich.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I feel like I came from a place where I wasn't necessarily raised to be super in touch with my emotions. So my wife, she comes from a big family. She's Somali, so they have 7 sisters in that family. A lot of emotions, a lot of emotions flowing everywhere, right? So I wasn't necessarily the most in touch with that side of myself, and I feel like just living with my wife and being with her, it made me get more in touch with that self to be like, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel this way. I never did that before. I never had to tap into that side of myself, which I feel made me a better communicator because now I'm not just coming from a place of anger or coming from a place of just, why don't you understand? I'm communicating why I feel this way, how I think we can work through this, what I think I'm not doing well or you're not doing well. I never got in touch with that side of myself before, so I think that's what my wife did for me personally, from a personal standpoint.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Um, One thing that you touched on in the book that I myself need to do a lot better from a personal standpoint again as well is you talked about the importance of getting involved in things that surround community and people who aren't necessarily from the exact same background of you, but stepping outside of your comfort zone.
For sure.
Where did you learn that?
Well, I love community. I have a lot of my frat brothers in the house right now. If you're the bros, say aya. So so community is definitely huge for me, but I think it's just understanding truly the power of what community is. If you're somebody in your social, you want to try to get into as much communities as possible. Why? Because that's how you grow overall. Like if you're trying to do anything, Ebo knows there's a bunch of organizations you're tied to. There's a bunch of groups that you're tied to. There's a bunch of communities that you're tied to. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of group chats on Snapchat, Instagram, all of that. We have the SDA group, that's one community. We have the basketball guys, that's one community. You have the Crawford, that's one. You have Sheridan, that's one community. We have the network marketers, that's one communities. You have the nightlife, that's one community. And what happens is, I truly feel like when you're tied into communities, it's an asset that you're building Because when things like this happen, when you're ready to launch a book or do something, now you could tap into those communities and they become support systems for you. And you could become support systems for them. So it goes vice versa. It's not like, hey, you gotta be real. The only reason why a lot of people are in this room, because I will show up for a lot of people too. It's not one way. So that's essentially why it's important, man.
And talking about community, one thing about Junior is very disciplined, and I'm gonna talk about the fitness journey because I've seen you. It goes back to like 2000 and maybe 11, 12 when we were at Granville's gym
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Athletic leaders.
athletic leaders, and I witnessed like Junior's one guy. It's crazy. Like today, if he wants to have 8 pack, he'll get it. If he wants to be big, all right, I don't care. But I'll prove to everybody that I could get big and get right back to a 6 pack just like that. And I witnessed that, like, bro, more than 3 times.
Yeah.
And one thing about you, when you're locked in, you're locked in. Nobody can stop you. Nobody can talk you out of it. You're grounded. You talk about that in your book. How have you been able to stay consistent at that in everything else, in every aspect of your life? I know nothing is perfect.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. But to be honest, I don't know about you guys, but when he told me he's writing this book, I said, yo, like, you know, when everybody has a story here. Does everyone have a book? That's just me showing you. So I was not shocked until I listened to the book and realized, like, yo, this is crazy. Like, I needed this. I played that first chapter 3 times. So how did you keep that? And I know it's not easy, and I'm glad that you're like being vulnerable to be like, yo, I'm still like, I don't have all the answers.
For sure.
I'm still, but like, how were you able to take it this far and get it where we're at right now?
For sure. I think I look at discipline from a completely different perspective. Like, I think some people are very extreme when it comes to their views on being disciplined. I look at things more on like a gardener. Like, I understand this thing is gonna take time. Like, even with the fitness stuff, a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, this guy does not eat no more junk food. He doesn't do none of that." Nah, bro, trust me. I was getting into it. I was getting into it. What? My cheat days were disgusting, bro. They were so bad. We were doing like 9,000 calories one sit. It was bad. It was so bad. But what when we got into the gym, we got serious. Like, anybody that knows, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, this guy's on the stairmaster. This guy's putting in work in the gym. He's not playing around." And we did that 6 to 7 days a week. You know, you don't gotta be perfect. You just gotta keep doing it. And I think the tough part about it is to be consistent when you suck is difficult. It's hard, but it's to be consistent regardless. You don't got to be perfect to start, but you got to start to be perfect, right? When I got into the gym, I looked at myself one day, and we talked about this all the time, and I couldn't recognize myself. And that's when I was like, okay, something actually needs to change. When the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change, you will change. And that's when it was like, yeah, you know what? And sometimes that first week, that second week, that third week, where there's no results and nobody's telling you, oh, wow, you look good. Yeah, yeah, slim up. Nah, nobody's telling you that yet. You might have to do a little bit longer. You might have to go another 2 months before people realize, yo, you don't look the same anymore. What's going on? But sometimes people need that right away, that dopamine. They need that right. But nah, sometimes you got to be okay with the process taking a little bit longer. Doesn't have to be perfect, bro. It doesn't mean you're not gonna have a little cheat meal here and there, but you gotta just keep going, even when you suck, even when you don't see the results. Just know why you're doing it.
No, that's real. And with that, with something you touched on early in the book and consistently throughout the book was failure.
Right.
And the reality of failure not being a negative thing and that
Right.
perspective of you have to fail.
Right.
It's not when you're gonna fail, it's if you're gonna fail, and what are those teachable moments
Right.
that you learn in failure. I know one of the earlier chapters you even spoke about a six-figure loss
Right.
from a business standpoint.
Right.
I don't know how deep we can go in, but I think it's important for people to hear about failures, so we can save people having to go through some of those failures on their own through your lessons.
100%. Honestly, one of the main attributes that I look at when I want to get into business with somebody is if they failed. Because whenever you're around people and they've never really failed, you don't know how they're going to operate when that time comes. And that's a very scary thing because that one failure can change how people operate. Doesn't mean they're bad people, doesn't mean they want to move a certain way, but that failure, they just sometimes can't handle it. So for me, there was a project that I was investing in, and I put, like, me and my partner put over, it was 100 and close to like 150K into that project. And I don't think we fully communicated exactly what we needed to get done from the person who was creating the project for us. Ultimately, yes, this person was a bad person, ended up running off with our cash. But I think had we done better vetting, we would have been in a better situation. But failure isn't the end all be all. It's the necessity, bro.
How
If
did you? Sorry, not to cut you off, but I think it's important to know how did you deal with that? Because 150K loss, anyone can in this room can say that's a serious loss. So
Oh, I'm still dealing with it.
that's what I.
What? It's 150 bands. I'm still dealing with it.
That's what I mean. But you're
From
dealing with
time to
it.
time, it comes back. Haunts. Think about all of the things I could have done differently. Trust me, regret is it
But
could be
but
tough
the, but what I'm saying is you're still here today,
for sure.
right? You wrote a book. You're here. You're active. You're pursuing business.
For
It
sure.
didn't finish you.
For sure, because there's nothing you can do about it. It's gone. It's gone. But the person that you were to be able to make that type of money to begin with is what's important. You haven't lost sight of who you actually are. So now you just gotta kind of, and it's tough, bro. I'm not gonna sit here and say tapping into that different zone is simple or it's easy. No, it's very difficult sometimes because now you kind of lose your way a little bit. Mind you, the project was something that I not only invested my money into, it was my time. It was something that I wanted to go all in on. So now you have to kind of pivot and you have to change your goals and things that you wanted to do. But in that comes a beauty because sometimes I hear it all the time. Every preacher says this. Sometimes God will use failure to guide your path on where he wants you to go. And I just think maybe for me, that chapter is still being written. Maybe just God didn't want me to be in that lane. So he took it away. So now he might want me to do something else. And I think just trying to be obedient to that is the stage that I'm in. Taking that time to be in prayer, to say, God, what do you actually want me to do in this new season of my life? Is where I'm at. And it's sad sometimes because it takes failure for us to really sit down and speak to God and say, you know what? I was leading my path and not yours. What do you need from me? It takes failure to get to that point, to get on your knees and say, what do you need from me? That's sad. But a lot of us are like this. And sometimes we're users, bro. We're users when it comes to God. We ask Him for everything. We're not obedient. We're not focused. We're not steadfast to Him. It's just sometimes we just need to do better, bro.
No, 100%. And I think everyone in this room goes through that personally, um, in one way or another. Something you talk about in chapter 6 of your book is conflict resolution. When we're all doing business up here in one way or another, and we deal with different conflicts, whether it be through direct partners or suppliers or people we're dealing with everyday life.
Right.
But a true leader understands the power of how to resolve conflict and deal
Right.
with conflict. So you talk about it in depth in the book, but where did that come from? Did someone teach you? Did life teach you? And how do you navigate that in your business world?
I think a lot of that has to do with upbringing. I'm not going to sit here and say if you were brought up a certain way where you look at something as wrong, you're going to operate that way. So for instance, if a business opportunity goes bad, but I know I'm a good person, then I got to do what a good person would do. And a good person is going to try to make it whole, even if it takes time. But there should be some type of communication and make sure your heart is in the right place to want to do better, to actually want to solve the problem. Because some people don't want to solve the problem. And it could be, it could not be, it might just be an upbringing thing. They might just not look at it as a problem. They might look at it like, hey, we took a loss, it is what it is. But for me, I can't operate like that. It's hard for me to operate like that. I just feel like, Mom Dukes raised me better than that. Pops Dukes raised me better than that.
Mama, you did a good job. You did a good job.
Now give mom a round of
Give
applause.
Mama
Give
a
mom a
round of
round of
applause,
applause.
man.
And just to piggyback off of that, that same chapter, it goes back to one thing I love about Junior, and it's like I thank God that these guys are like my real family. Like we're both born the same year. He's older than me a couple weeks. Like we're I think like 11 days. But it's like besides that, it's like we have a core 91 SDA family that like there's one junior. There's like everybody has their month in the year, and we're literally all entrepreneurs that were born that year. And one thing about Junior, always plans ahead. Like, doesn't matter. Like, we wrote this book a year ago. Here we are. Like, this guy will plan it and he'll do it. But it's not that easy because some people, like, I'm not gonna lie, my life, I've got away with not planning and being successful. And it's the real, like, I've got away with that stuff. And I've had, and it goes back to your story about to the L you took. Like, I took a huge L, I think 2022, when pandemic happened 5 years ago, right? 2020. For like most entrepreneurs, I don't know, for me, business wise, it was blessed. We had a lot of funds coming in. Everything was blessed. I was doing this, doing that, raking in. I was like, oh my gosh, my life, like what I thought 2025 would be, it's not that. But what I thought in 2020, it was like, it's lit. This is green light. It's good. And you don't really, like they say, plan, like, plan ahead for rainy days and all of that. But life is good. Life is good. You're just going. You're just going. How important is you planning ahead? Because they say if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yeah. How important is it for you, especially with this book? Not only planning, doing the research, educating yourself, speaking to mentors, other authors who wrote books to get advice to get you on that path.
I think even even looking at one of the mentors that I had that helped me pretty much write this book was Augustine, right? And I think sometimes we're so worried about the end result, but it's just one foot in front of the other. I think for me it was just starting to write. That was the first step. The first step wasn't to write a book. The first step was get into a routine. So my routine was very interesting. I'll go to the same Starbucks. I'll get the same order, sit at the same place. I was even awkward sometimes when people were already sitting at my place because I would try to find a way for them to not be in my place. But but just to build that routine to then consistently start writing to then eventually have a book. If you look at things from a tier system, it's easier to navigate it overall than it is to think about the whole picture right away. So it's like when we think about, like, a lot of people will say, "Oh, Junior always thinks ahead." Not really. Like when I wanted to do a show and get into fitness, I didn't think about what I was going to look like. I just thought about the day-to-day winning the day. Like one of my favorite hip hop songs is "Today I Did Good" by Gunna, because yo, when I listen to that song, it's just sometimes you just gotta win the day. You don't have to win the year, yo. Sometimes you just gotta win the day. Okay, I'm not gonna eat bad today. I'm not gonna do this today. Just win that one day. And then day by day, 90 days go by and you're like, whoa, now you have momentum. And that's what life is all about. Success, life, whatever you want. It's all about getting momentum. Figuring out a way to just start and get some momentum. At first it's tough, but once it starts to roll, we already know what happens when momentum starts to move, right? So that's how I navigate it in my head.
Tough.
Nah, for sure. And I can speak from my personal experience running a business. One thing that really resonated with me was when you spoke about the importance of letting people know when they're doing good.
Yes.
When you're
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're when you're a leader, letting people know when they've done a good job, something that you appreciate about them? Because I can speak for myself. I don't always do that. Sometimes I get so caught up in just like
Oh,
get
I'm a
this
fan.
done.
I'm
I'll
a
be like,
fan, bro.
get this done now, and then I walk away. I'm not always saying like, hey, you did great on that. That was
Oh,
amazing,
nah.
right? It made me really think about my personal experience and am I doing that enough with the people who are working for me, and why that's important. So it resonated with me.
Yo, you know what's funny? I don't understand haters. I just don't get it. Like I don't understand it. But like, hey, if you're a hater, you're a hater. It is what it is.
I don't
But
think there's no haters in this. I'm the
you
guy
know what
to
I mean? But
rebuke the
it's just
energy.
there's just something beautiful about seeing people grow, bro. It's just something good about seeing people grow. And it's exciting. And I don't know how you could look at somebody, talk to somebody, be around them, and not want to see them grow. Like it's just nice to see when you see somebody who is maybe struggling, who is at a point that they couldn't motivate themselves, they couldn't move forward. Maybe you help them a little bit with some advice. Maybe you be there for them, listen to them, and then a few months down the line, see them do better. Even some of your people who are doing good, see them do better. It's so exciting because I don't know about you, but I'm proud of associations. I feel like, hey, if you're doing well and I'm beside you, then it's gonna rub off on me a little bit too. But I'm happy for you because it inspires me. So your success is not my failure, bro. It inspires me. There's been so many people, even some people in this room that I've inspired, and when I was down, re-inspired me, and that was in the book. Talked about that. Because when you are down and you go look at Instagram and you see Hope, yeah, my name is Hope. This is my friend, and you're seeing them kill it. You're like, yeah, that's exciting. And that's what gets you energized again. When you're seeing your guys go and kill it, seeing your guys on stages, guys that you used to share early memories with. Me and Jerome McDonald's. You know what I mean? Me and some of the bros here, we have stories we could go back. And to see where they are now, it's like growth is just such a beautiful thing. And for people that sometimes people can't control envy. I don't know where it comes from, but sometimes people can't control it. But in life, I think there's something important about perspective. If you can change your perspective on how you look at something, that envy might just go away because you might just look at it in a way where you're saying, wow, this person is doing it and it inspires you. It's perspective. Some people might look at the same thing and it envies them because it makes them feel less than. That's not the truth. It's just something you made up in your head.
Nah, well said. Give it up for that one time. Something you keep going back to is your fraternity
Yeah.
and your brothers.
Right.
I remember when I met you and you were telling me that you're in a fraternity. I'm like, yo, like part of my ignorance, I didn't even know that existed in Canada. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, right? I was like, what? So for me, that wasn't my experience, but I appreciated the brotherhood and how passionate you were
Right.
about it. What got you into that, and what does being a part of that fraternity? How has it changed your life?
So originally, the first time I heard about D9 organizations was in 2011, 2012. Because people who know me well know a lot of my cousins are Greek. Like most of them, I was probably the only one that wasn't. So I was always hearing the experiences, seeing it firsthand, going to the barbecues, seeing all of this stuff. I remember my first experience was, it's funny. It was in, and I wrote this all in the book as well. So it was in 2012. I ended up going to Buffalo to see Ernest. So Ernest is my cousin that grew up in New York that ended up going to school in Buffalo. And he just asked me to come down one week and said, "Hey, we're gonna go to this barbecue. You should come. You should come with us." So I said, "Okay." I was thinking the barbecue was in Buffalo, so I drove there, and he's like, "No, the barbecue is in New York City, bro. I only brought enough funds to go to Buffalo." I was like, "New York City? What?" He's like, "Yeah, don't worry. We're going to drive there." I said, "Oh my God. All right." So we jump into the car. We drive all the way there, 11 hours. This guy's driving like a maniac because he's trying to get to the party before the first party, before it's a lock off. But we're sprinting over there. And that weekend, I experienced what the Divine Nine organizations were about. Because we went to this party in Harlem, and there was like 7,000 people outside, bro. And every single one of them were part of different organizations. And I saw real unity amongst black people for the first time in a younger group, like people our age. And at that time, I was like 20, 22, 21. And seeing this was like, yo, what is this? Whatever this is, I need to know. I need to find out. And then to later on, full circle moment was one of my brothers, Christopher Infantry, who I was in ACN with as well. And I talk about him a lot in the book as well. Come to find out, he was part of Omega Sci-Fi and was in Canada. And then he educated me on the fact that yes, there are brothers in Canada. There is a chapter in Canada, and like that inspired me. But we kind of left it alone. We never talked about it. And then when the opportunity came up to get involved, I got an invite, and I was super excited to get that invite, and here we are today. Been 2 years into Fold, and it's been an amazing experience. Like what the organization is doing on a global level is amazing, and what we are going to do in Toronto as a chapter of Omega Sci-Fi is going to be huge as well. So
I think that's powerful, and I guess one question I would have to people who have young sons and daughters, and people who themselves are looking for that kind of brotherhood, but may not necessarily have the opportunity to do it through a fraternity. What are some other ways that you've learned in your personal journey that young brothers can get involved and find that sense of community? Because I feel like that's really lacking with young brothers today.
I think I think times have changed, and this is why we're curating the space that we are curating with our brotherhood's men's meetings on Thursday, because when we were coming up, like Ebone, you could attest to this. Rich, you could probably attest to it. For us, it was sports. Sports was kind of our sense of community. Sports was the way we kind of got away. Sports was how we build bonds and brotherhoods and all of that stuff. So it was really, and I don't even want to just say sports. I really just want to call it what it is. It was basketball. It was basketball for us for so long. And I think for us, we built real bonds just playing ball. That when we got older, we're still cool. But the climate now is different. It is different. So I do feel like there is a disconnect when it comes to the older guys and the YNs. So I think it's important for guys who have experience, especially guys in this room who are doing a little bit better, to reach back out. I tell guys who are in their 30s, you need to be talking to somebody who's 25 just to just kind of give them a little bit of insight on life because they don't see what they don't see. And the same thing for us who are in our 30s to speak to the guys who are in their 40s because we don't see what we don't see. And that bridge is what's important right now. We're trying to curate it. I know Iron Sharpens Iron's trying to curate this. Black Men Styles trying to curate this. And there's organizations that are doing the work. Now it's just we just got to reach out a little bit more and touch those pause touch those guys in, in that way, and make sure that we actually reach out to them and tell them we're here. We're here to support. And I think the first step is really if you are somebody and you're doing okay and you're over the age of 25, find somebody that you can help. Find somebody that you can help. If like for instance, let me just if I've ever helped you, put your hand up. A lot of the times it was just because you were around and I took interest. Sometimes that's all it is, bro. Cause we have younger people around that we can help. The other day I was on the phone with Prempe over there, and we just had a great conversation about he had one more year left in school, trying to figure out certain things. He has some ambition. Okay, let's guide this a little bit. Let's figure out what your next move can be. And it doesn't have we're not charging anybody. We're just trying to help because if I help you, who knows? Maybe I might when my son grows up, he might hire him. it's gonna come back full circle. That's the point of helping, right?
And even it's funny because Brimper, you're just having talks with all of us. Eh? You didn't even notice. There's one day it's crazy, but it's good. We went. It's funny you say that though. We were playing ball, me, Kojo, Bremper, and I was dropping him home. And it's funny because we grew up like I can't even believe this is him right now. When you look at him and like, yo, where did you, like you're a little kid, like how is this you? And then we're having a conversation of like, what are you up to and what's going on? And we're here talking about tech and we're just talking about all the different spaces and what he's trying to get into. And it was so funny and crazy because he doesn't know that was so inspiring to me. It was like I was like, yo, look at you now, like, all right, cool. What's your number? Like, let's really chat. Like, you're my family, but we don't really talk because you were not my age group. But through basketball, thank God our SDA, we had an SDA crew. They said let's play ball Saturday. We're supposed to play ball today because of this event. We canceled it. But through basketball is how we're able to have that conversation and appreciate the youth because some days it's crazy. I work in the youth jails, and it's so crazy how a lot of these kids who are doing a lot of dumb ish are very smart.
Yeah.
It's actually sad though. Like they're very smart, and sometimes they realize when it's too late. And sometimes I be taking them in, like it's the way I be taking them in, and they don't understand that. I'm like, I'm impressed, and I'm just disappointed at the same time, trying to figure out the balance, mental balance. I'm trying to figure out that balance to figure out like, yo, how do I help this youth who's going through what they're going through while I can learn something from him, and he can learn from me, and I'm not judging him.
Right.
Like I'm being there to listen so that I can actually figure out a way, or if it may not be me, it may be, Omar's doing a lot of great stuff in the school. I might have to send him off to him to feel like, yo, I have so much on my plate. How can I help him out? But it's funny that you talked about that, and I brought that. It's like we need to reach back, and like Rich, I was watching Rich's snap the other day when he talked about something happened to his car, he got damaged, and through him talking about his business, not only did he get his car fixed, he got a business sale. The guy right away, 20 t-shirts. And then he was talking about like,
That's amazing.
yo, it's dope. No, give a round of applause to that. Like you gotta put yourself out there. You gotta talk about what's happening in order to change whatever's going on. Like that, he just brought new business to himself just like that. And I'm pretty sure the guy's gonna order more. Like I was laughing. I was like, yo, end of the month, the guy said it's okay, 20 t-shirts. I got more. I'm like, yo, that's good. I like that. I like that. But it's like embracing the youth because we're not obviously 91. We're getting old, bro. We're 30.
We're up
We're
there,
getting
we're
there.
up
We're
there.
getting there. It's not the same like before. Like
We're up there still.
we play ball, you realize, like, oh
these-
my goodness, like
these guys keep on trying to convince me to hoop. Hey,
no, you gotta come though. You're cheesing me. You gotta
I
come.
don't know,
You gotta
man.
come.
I don't know.
We're active. We've been active.
I'm not gonna lie. The last time I played was at Marchio's birthday, bro. And that was 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Yeah, see? It's been a while. But I was hooping, though. I was hooping.
Yeah, you do all
For
right.
the
You do all
camera. For
right.
the camera.
I thought I was hooping still.
Yo, but just to jump in, that goes back into chapter 9.
Yeah.
You dive deep into networking and the importance of networking.
Right.
Obviously, that's a big part of your life. There's a common theme in your life that I'm gonna say like a master networker in the way that you maneuver social settings and
I like that.
and different groups that you're in. Something I've observed about you that I admire is the way you network with people.
Right.
You talked about moving to Milton,
Right.
and that you weren't too happy about it at first.
Right. Right.
Weren't feeling it.
Yeah.
Came to your school, you're one of the only few black people there.
Right.
Also weren't feeling it. But something that stuck out to me was that you said, you know what, I'm gonna make a conscientious effort to befriend people who don't look like me,
Right.
who don't have an obvious common ground as me, and I'm gonna try my best to make myself somebody who's known and liked in this place at a young age,
Right.
which is something I'm still trying to figure out now. Like people who know me personally, if you know me well, I'm super social. If I don't know you like that, I'm probably just kind of standoffish a little bit, right? That's just my personality. So it's something that I gotta constantly work on. I wasn't doing it at that age. So
Yeah.
what gave you the foresight to say, you know what, I'm a teenager, but I want to befriend these people who look nothing like me, have nothing in common? Where did that come from?
Honestly, I think this is like this is one Wolf is gonna appreciate because when we talk about like real like mental health, growing up in the city, you have a mindset. You don't even realize you have this mindset, but you have this like unfriendly, unapproachable mindset. especially if you're a black man growing up in the city. You're always on guard. Always. Doesn't matter where you are because you never know what somebody else is on. So you're always kind of at alert. And that's kind of how you end up growing up. You think about it, by the time you're 13, 14, you probably get jumped for the first time by some op block, whatever, when you're like 13. And then the guys in the area, now it's a big thing. Now you're part of it. And you had no, like, hey, I wasn't involved. I'm getting in. Like you try to tell them, no, I'm not involved. Like, no, I go to church. No, but they add you. Now you're part. Now you're part of the block. And then you end up developing. And I know it sounds funny, but this is the truth of how people grow up in the city all the time. Then you kind of build this weird demeanor where you have to be strong and like macho all the time, and you carry that. So I remember the first day we moved to Milton, I had that mindset thinking like, oh man, like I'm the only black person in the school. If anybody talks to me crazy, yeah, it's up. It's up. And then I realized everybody was so nice. Bro, bro, I think it sounds funny, but the culture shock was impeccable. The first time I was walking on my street and somebody said good morning, I didn't even know how to respond back. It sounds hilarious, but let's be real. I didn't know how to respond back because in the elevator that I lived in my building, nobody said good morning to each other. It's just the same miserable mood we're all in. We're all going to our destinations. I'm going to school. Hey, well, I go on to the people you know. Everybody else is mean mug. Somebody said good morning. I said, yeah, good morning. It's thrown off. So having my guard completely come down when I went to the school was what completely changed my mindset, bro. When I realized how nice people were, bro, I didn't know people. People are like, yo, I'm gonna pick you up. I'm gonna drop you home. Some dude I didn't know picked me up from my crib and brought me to school every day. He's like, yo, you're a cool guy. Come with me. Sure, bro. I didn't want to walk anyway. So I started to experience all of this stuff and then I started to enjoy it. I don't like saying that like I was like the token black kid, but I became it because it was like I started talking to everybody because I'm like everybody's nice. Started talking to the teachers, was cool with the teachers, started talking to all of the students, every single grade, until there was a kid one time that was talking about just kids in the school. And he's like, yeah, Junior, you're like the most popular kid in the school, and you just got here. And I find that so strange. And I was like, really? I I I was kind of like taken back by that because where I grew up, being popular was being bad. It wasn't being friendly. It was such a culture shock, and once I experienced that, I think that's what opened the door to this networking culture that I have. And now it's just a part of me that if I see somebody and I meet somebody, I have to talk to them, I have to engage, I got to learn a little bit more about them, and it's just kind of that's where I picked it up.
Yeah, and I know for me, we probably have a very similar experience coming up, right? But for me, it's sad to say, especially in our communities, oftentimes the most popular person is the most violent person,
Oh, 100%.
right? And
100%.
that's just such a backwards way of thinking, but it's a reality. Whoever's the most violent guy, whoever's willing to take it there, is
Blood
who's
bond.
exactly is popular. So I think that for a lot of us men in the room, I can speak for personally, it's a lot more unlearning at this age, like where I am right now,
For sure.
than learning. I'm unlearning that a lot
Yeah.
of the ways that we were taught that we're supposed to behave and the ways that we're supposed to act were pushed on us. But like you can't, you don't have to be in that box that they try to push us in. So I feel like it's our job to teach a lot of these younger kids that they don't have to be this stereotype that they tell you. You have to be.
For
You're an
sure.
individual. You
For
know.
sure. For sure.
And even touching to, I saw this video the other day of Denzel Washington. He was speaking to, I think it was a classroom or a graduating class, and he was talking about his story, like where he came from, and basically talking about a lot of his friends. Some of his friends did like 20 years, and some of them are dead, and where he was speaking about what he's gone through and his brought up see, and how like if he never even talked about it, you wouldn't even know. And he was basically explaining to these guys, like, yo, you may see me now and all this success, but trust me, it's real. Like, what I went through is the reason why I knew that I couldn't go this route. But don't get it twisted. Those are the people I gotta either check on or talk to behind the scenes to make sure that they are good and make sure that everything is smooth. But like, it wasn't easy for me. Like, don't think just because I'm winning and you see all of this and I may be your favorite actor and yada yada that this is what it is and I can't relate to what you're going through. And I remember Saga, bro. I lived with you, bro.
Yeah.
I was Marilyn Monroe. Like,
Yeah.
we lived together in those buildings, and
Yeah, Ebon stole the key.
Like-
He didn't put it back in front of the lamp.
and we have some crazy stories that we won't talk about now. But it's like when you think about all these places, and like me, I love networking. I know, like, bro, I'll tell you a real quick story. Like, when I went to the World Cup, when I knew we were going to the World Cup, I knew it was lit. Like, I knew once I get there, I'm going to meet everybody. Like, my mind, I'm like, my artist is there, Free is going, but I have another purpose. Trust me, I'm gonna find out and meet everybody and tell them I'm African. Like, Afrobeats is rising. Like, it's gonna be lit. Like, it's a perfect time. If you know me, you know I've been repping Africa from day one. From
Yeah.
I got to Earnscliffe, from anywhere I went, Sheridan, Chinguizi, Brampton, I always repped Africa, whether it was cool or not. But I knew that once I got to Qatar, like, I'm gonna make the most out of this. Like, it's only makes sense. Like, you can only, what are you gonna get from meeting some, like, it's either, if you ask somebody a question, it's gonna be yes or no, or you're gonna get an answer that you want, or you're gonna be viable in some way. But I knew that when I went there, as long as I introduced myself and meet these people, and they always used to talk about this elevator pitch, like, make sure you have that ready.
Right.
Like, having that pitch so that you know how to conversate and that people can elaborate what you're trying to say properly, right? I went there the first time with Free A quick, boom, we got work. I met like 3 people that were very important. And based off the fact, me telling them that I work with artists, that's how I was able to go back and host the fan festival for 40,000 people. I haven't really talked about it, but I will. Like, I'm going to give you a quick gist. Like, I literally met a lady, another guy, and we spoke about being African. They didn't know we went to represent Team Canada.
Right.
They didn't know we were Ghanaian. They just needed us because of Team Canada. The minute we opened the doors and said that we're Ghanaian, they're like, wait, what? You're Ghanaian? So you know the artist? That's how I was able to bring Stoneboy and then DeVito. And that was from a simple conversation in a lunchroom in the middle of the Middle East. But I already knew, like, I already prepared, like, I knew it was gonna happen, but sometimes you gotta, like, meant to be prepared. So I always tell people, when I hear people say they're afraid or they're scared I'm like, yo, are you like, yo, my whole life has been speaking to people and talking to and getting on to the next. And it's like, it's the cheat code. Like,
Nah, like,
And that goes back to letting people know what you do in every environment, right? Because you don't know who
Have
they
to.
are and what they can do for you.
well, it's funny because even when I reference in chapter 2, when we talk about popularity contests, when we say why was somebody popular when they were younger, and does it convert when they get older? You see, you Ebon, you're the prime example of who I was talking about in the book. Because when we were younger, we couldn't go anywhere without Ebon hailing up everybody, bro. Like, yo, how does this guy know so much people, bro? Relax. Yo, Ebon, we gotta go. Yeah, fam. Come back into the car. Yo, I don't even remember this guy's name, bro. But I'm like, this guy's just so popular. This guy's cool. And you're literally the definition of what we're talking about. You might have it in a period of time, but always adding to it, always making sure it's a priority is what's important. And that's what you've done, and this is why your life is the way it is right now. I'm pretty sure no matter what you need, it's a phone call away.
And that goes into, I agree, and that goes into something you talked about, 2 things. Something that I took from the book that I said I'm going to implement in my networking style is finding common ground and then using compliments as a way to open up a conversation.
Right.
So explain, can you give us like a live example
Oh,
with somebody, or you can even do it live, how that looks for you?
Women are sick at this, bro. Yo, women are, girl, I love your hair. I love this. And then boom, it's a whole conversation. You're just standing there just watching them going crazy. They're best friends, bro. They're going out for brunch next week. Like, look at that. Like, how did that happen? One compliment, boom, friend. It's I would always see the way women do it, and I just thought it was just so fascinating how they could find some form of relatability and then boom, just connect. So I started doing that. It's not that difficult, bro. The forces, and we just start and bro, you. I always say like when I broke down the four pillars in the book, it's either you're going to use the four pillars or you're going to find some type of common ground. If you could find a common ground, perfect. But a compliment is the easiest way to make somebody smile and it's the easiest way to start a conversation. Okay, this guy shot a pocket square? Okay. I like your hat. Where'd you get that? Boom, you're gonna tell me where you got that. Oh, okay. Do they have a website? Oh, okay. Add me up on Instagram. Boom. That's it. Sometimes if you don't have enough time, that is enough. You see what we did there? We didn't do too much. But a compliment was just the open-ended for us to really get in and close whatever. It's a good start. It's an easy start.
And I feel like that ties into like putting your ego down for a second.
For sure.
Like I'm bigging you up as a way for us to find common ground as opposed to talking about myself.
For sure. If you do have a huge ego and you find and it is difficult for you to compliment people, then I could see this process being very difficult. But like if you want to be a true networker, you kind of got to be selfless, bro. If you want to be a true networker, you can't really have an ego. Anybody who knows me well. Like, yo, if you have something nice, or if you dress nice or whatever, I'm a compliment guy. I will give you the compliment, bro, and I will take it there with the compliment. Yeah, Rich. This guy came. This guy came. I said, "How did your wife let you outside like this, bro?" It's the first thing I told him about. That's how you got to be okay with it. You got to be, and I feel like sometimes for men, we make it very difficult to compliment other men. Bro, there's no pause about complimenting another man, bro. There's nothing wrong with that. Yo, you have nice shoes. I like your suit. You're looking good today. It's okay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
You talked about something that I do, but I didn't know there was a name for it. Tap rooting.
Ooh.
I never knew. I never heard that in my life. To be honest, I do it naturally, but I never knew that was a thing. So,
So
some people here may not know. Maybe I'm just ignorant, but some people may not know what that is.
so there's two ends to taprooting. Personally, you could taproot by yourself, which is cool. But when it comes to taprooting, I usually like to use some type of tag team system. But for those who don't know what taprooting is, I explained it in the book. It's navigating other people's networks. So let's just say I meet Rich and Rich introduces me to Ebone. Now I'm taking a liking to Ebone and we start communicating and we start talking. Now Ebone's introducing me to his network. By the time, like, this is how people go into like different cities and build big networks because all they're doing is they're navigating multiple networks. So it could get to a point where Ebone introduces me to his cousin. Now his cousin introduced me to their friends, and but it's work. It's not simple stuff to do. Like you have to think of networking as another job because you're going into these networks and you're spending time with people and you're taking a vested interest in these people. So it's the number one skill to growing fast, bro. If you want to grow fast and you don't want to start on level one every single time with you who you meet, the warm introduction allows you to work through it way faster than it will be with all cold contacts. The warm introduction, if somebody says, yo, this is my homie, he's good. That intro, that intro's it. Like people will think an introduction is just an introduction. No, an introduction could change your life. And that's what tap rooting is about. The network marketers in the room know exactly what I'm talking about, bro. Because by the time you wake up, they're already doing meetings with your cousin. And your cousin just came to one meeting. You're like, how did that happen, bro? My cousin already has like 3 people on his team. How did that what? Has Ebo calling me saying, nah, I gotta get to work, bro. What are you doing? So that's what tap rooting is about. Big shout out to me and my bro. I remember when we would travel, we would do this thing where he would he would warm the in he would warm the conversation and he would throw edification into it. So he would be like, "Yo, like what you do? Yo, you're sharp." He would do all of the compliment stuff, and then he would be like, "Yo, my bro does this. You should probably talk to him." And then by the time they come to me, yeah, it's a wrap. You're not leaving here, bro. Yeah, we're locked in, bro. Yeah, you're signing up for whatever. You're about to sell kitchen knives after this, bro. So yeah, that's taproot.
And you've been literally doing it your whole life.
Facts.
Like if you know Junior, you know. If bro, anything Junior was doing, I was there. It didn't even matter. Like, all
You
right,
you know who's good at taprooting that I should give a shout out to? Joyce.
where's she? If you
Joyce
guys don't
back
know,
there
where's
trying to
Joyce?
hide, because Joyce is the person that I will give an intro to, and then they will call me, be like, yeah, Joyce is doing my party. She's doing business. She's planning all our parties and stuff. I said, what? When did Joyce get so close to y'all like that? Like, what happened? Joyce is going to barbecues and dinners with everybody. I'm like, wow, like I just introduced Joyce to a whole new network of people, and Joyce is locked in. They're like, yeah, Joyce is the man now. They're telling me this. I was like, wow, taprooter.
And I think it's also important for people to understand that you don't have to be somebody who's necessarily extroverted
Right.
to network. Because sometimes I'll be talking to people and they'll say, I'm not really that kind of person. I'm to myself, and that doesn't mean you can't network. It might not look like someone else how they network,
Right.
but you at some point have to take the initiative and find ways that work for you, right?
I think there's a culture, and when it comes to networking, you could aggressively network if you're using it for something, which is fair. Like if you're using it for a business, or you need to promote something, or you need to push something, you're going to aggressively network. But on the flip side, if you're somebody that is just passively networking, you can just use the introductions to just grow your network over time. That doesn't mean you're going to meet a thousand people in a year, but you might just make 30 new solid connections, which is still beneficial for your life.
It could be even more valuable if they're, you know what I
One
mean?
100%. And I in 2022, I created the handshake rule. So when we got our building in Milton, our HQ, my goal was to shake 3,000 people's hands. I fell short. I fell short. I think we might have gotten to like eight. We were like 1,800, a little bit over 1,800, but we ran so much events in our space, and all I did was every single time there was an event and there was 400 people back there, I would go there and shake every single person's hands because I had to hit my quota. And that was part of the game of networking. You don't have to be like that, but if you're saying, "Yo, I'm going to network and I'm going to take it seriously," then just play that game with yourself. Meet 2 to 3 new people every single day. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. When you go to the gym and somebody's saying, "Hey, can I work in with you?" Yeah, that's perfect time to converse. This is a perfect time to make a connection.
And people don't realize how much of a skill. My girl, she was telling me to watch this. There's some new show on Netflix where somebody gets $1 million in a box, and you gotta. There's like 10, 12 people. Like I literally, as I'm leaving, she's like, "Yo, baby, you gotta watch this. You gotta." I'm like, "Yo, chill. Like I gotta relax." But she's like, "No, trust me, it's good. Like there's 12 people in the room. You gotta. Everybody gets there. They're from all over the place in the states, and one person in their box is gonna find $1 million in cash. Now the rule of the game is that you have a task to do in a certain amount of time. So you get like 1 hour. The task was in 1 hour, you gotta hug everybody in this room without people knowing that you got the $1 million. And honestly, she was awesome. Like she was doing so well. And then the last two is two black people now. Everyone else is like white, Asians, like, but now it's the two black people left. And she's nervous. She's like, yo, how am I gonna do this? I've already hugged enough people. It's funny, like, you know that when I was watching, I'm like, when I cited it, I'm like, Hope would be so good on this show. Like, he would kill this show. But I found it like when the lady got to the last two people and she got the hug, like she'll come, and it came back to the compliments. And from the compliments, as soon as a hand came, she would boom, that counts as a hug. And then the last person now, she made sure that she stood behind close enough to that person and not making it awkward. In my head, I'm like, yo, she should just fall. The person will pick her up, you hug her, thank you. And all she did was she went beside the person, they complimented, and boom, she got that hug. Task completed. Just like that. I was like, yo, this aggressive thing sometimes work, but you got to do it in your own way. Like you got to find what works for you. It's not gonna work for like what works for me is not gonna work for you, and what works for you is not gonna work for me. But you got to find out. When you find that, and it's like what you're talking about. When eventually it'll be like a compound interest. It's just like what you're talking about, just winning the day.
Right.
And once you win day one, oh, day one, boom. Day two, bro, we see Hope's videos. Whenever he's going, and it's sorry to attack you, but it's like these videos are viral. Like
Yeah,
you
they're
see
going
two
crazy.
grown men
Yeah, yeah,
coming
yeah.
210 pounds, 240 pounds. Then they're going crazy, but it works. And when he realized it worked, he kept going and consistent. And you see what's happening. And it's just like I'm watching, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
Like from November,
Yeah,
bro,
the cold plunge? What?
it's crazy.
Let me take a shot and do a cold plunge. I was like,
Duh.
gee.
But it's like eventually everybody, you just gotta figure out what works for you. And you know what I loved about when you put the video on Instagram talking about announcing that you're gonna do this book, and you were talking about what mom was telling you back home about being popular in high school and what it meant to them. And then when you shared that story about when you're in Milton, it's like full circle.
Yeah.
Like that, even though this book is, you complete it, it's there, your life is still being written.
For sure.
Chapters are still being opened. There's still, like, that's why I tell people it doesn't matter how chapter 1 is, right? Like the book is still going. And that's why I've been reading Proverbs. Like, yo, I'm a person, I was born in the church, and maybe I fell out, not maybe, like, it's kind of hard to dibble and dabble in the world and still know that God is good. And, like you said earlier, like we only go to him when things are bad. But when I started to read Proverbs, I was like, yo, I'm such a fool for not reading this book from time.
For real.
It's like,
For real.
if you want to learn about wisdom and how to deal with life and the riches, what life really means, go read Proverbs. From the first chapter, you're going to be like, oh, everything's there. And that's something that our parents installed with us, but it's coming like we just thought it was cool. Like every Saturday we link up, all right, cool, what we doing? And then Junior actually brought the like competition. When I say competition, it was like when juniors started ACN and stuff, like when I'm looking back to our age group, you made us know that, like, you know, when you go to those meetings and they start those meetings off, they win you right away. Like how they talk in those meetings and how they win you right away. They make you know there's more to life than just working a 9 to 5. Like right away, it's like, yes, forget your job. Let's do this. Just get these people 3, boom, 6, boom, 9, 12, 15. There you go, boom. Then it keeps going, checks. But it's like when Junior brought that out in us, it's like that helped a lot of us. I know it helped all of us to literally how to network, how to deal with people. But I want to talk to why was it so important to using what you went through and what your mom told you about being popular? Like, how did that tie into the book name and you being like, yo, for my first book, this is how the route I'm gonna go?
So the book originally was not going, like, that wasn't the title that I first chose. The book was actually supposed to be called The Art of Networking. And it was funny because I was writing one of the chapters and I was just thinking about just people who were popular when we were younger, the ones who fell off versus the ones who kind of turned that popularity into something substantial today. And I just thought about it. I was just like, it's kind of like a game. It's like a sport. Like popularity is a sport and communication is the way to win the game. That was in a chapter. And that after I wrote that, I was just like, no, that's the title. That's the title. Popularity is a sport.
That's crazy. We wouldn't even know that if you didn't ask that. That's crazy. I'm here thinking this guy, yeah, your popularity is a sport, but no, that's good. That's great. So when you figured that out and you knew that, did you have to make any changes, or you just stuck to the script and then said,
I stuck to everything because everything still aligned. So it wasn't like it was like a big shift, but just changing that title, I just knew was just, it just sounded sick. Like the first time I said popularity is a sport. That sounds nice. I would want to read that. I would definitely I would want to read the series. How many books they got on popularity is a sport? And that's what got me sold because it's like sports means a lot to a lot of us. You know, a lot of our like personal development usually came from sports for for people in our community for the most part, right? So just understanding that networking has the same capabilities of playing a sport and getting good at it, you know, the 10,000 hours. If you're somebody who's uncomfortable about talking to people you don't know, if you do it a little bit more, you won't be uncomfortable. You just kind of got to build that muscle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think with that comes one of the last things I want to talk about that is a common theme in the book as well is empathy
Yeah.
and the importance of empathy, um, and how that changed the dynamics and the way that you operate, by being an empathetic person as opposed to just treating everybody the same.
Right. Right. When it comes to empathy, it goes back to the golden rule, bro. Look, treat people how you want to be treated. When you look at somebody and you really take them in and you're like, okay, how would I want to be treated in this situation? And am I going to treat this person the exact same way? That's what ultimately breeds that empathy that you're talking about. Because, bro, like sometimes people just need to know that somebody cares. Like I referenced in the book, people don't care what you know until they know how much you care. I think for somebody like myself, I try to show up more for people than I try to say I show up for people. I try to be there for people more than I brag about being there for people. There's probably some people who've been in their darkest moments and have talked to me, not knowing that I was in my darkest moments, and I still made sure I was there for them. And I made it all about them. And you know what's crazy is life has a funny way of spinning around and supporting you. Because when you are in a moment, you tend to find the people that you helped that didn't know you were in a moment come back and help you in a weird, strange way. And it always happens like that. So empathy is huge, man.
And I just want to say before we end this like live conversation, we spoke about the importance of letting people know when they're doing good.
Yes.
What you did here with this book is something amazing. It's something that's gonna outlive you. Your kids and your kids' kids will always have something to look back on and say, this person who's in our bloodline wrote this guide, this really important guide for people to use when they're navigating life, when they're navigating relationships,
Right.
when they're trying to make it in the world. It's serving as a very concise guide on how to move in those situations, and it's going to change lives. And it's something you should be extremely proud of. So I want everyone to give it up one more time for Junior.
And before, like Rich said, we go, what is one thing, maybe a couple, what is one thing that you want people to get out of this book from that may not know you? Because this book is going to spread. Like, I love when I got here today, as soon as everyone got here, Junior, yo, how much is the book? Like, I heard that like 30 times back to back. I was like, yo, I love this support. Like, everybody right away, I'm here. Like, where's the book? And when we started this conversation, Rich asked how many people you saw the hands. Like, everybody, it talks about, it goes back to you talking about your reputation and how you carry yourself. And win
Right.
or loss, you're still that same person. But what is that one thing you want everybody to get out of this book? And even somebody that may not know you, that it could help them in the future or even for what they're going through right now.
The one thing that I want everybody who's reading this book to understand is relationships is an asset. So you see how a lot of people will save, like we could get into financial talk. We'll save money, buy a property, it's an asset. You know, put your money in TFSAs, put it into the stock market, that's an asset. Relationships to me is probably worth more than all of those things because one relationship could bring you something that you can't even count. You can't even fathom. You're one like I don't even want to sound like that, but you're literally one relationship away from your life changing. You people will be like, "Oh, I'm one opportunity away." No, you're one relationship away. Literally, all it takes is just one relationship that could ultimately change your life. So I want people to read this book and take their relationships seriously, bro. I want you to treat your relationships as if it was gold because it is gold. Go out, network, meet people. If you're somebody who doesn't want to meet people, like get out of your comfort zone and meet a few people. You don't got to be the most social person in the world, but go out and meet some people and understand that, yeah, you might have your time as an asset, your money is an asset, but your relationships is also an asset. Those three, they have to be the most important thing to you. Those three right there. And relationships is in that list because a lot of people think like, oh, it's just that's just my boy, that's my homie. No, relationships. Your regular homie probably knows somebody that could change your life in the field that you're in. But if you don't look at it like that, it's never gonna happen for you like that. Understand what I'm saying? So that's what I want people to get out of this book.
Let's clap it up for that one time. And again, I want to say I'm proud of you. And one ask that I have for everyone who's here, this is a young black man who's doing something positive, who's putting his money, time, and effort into something that can help change the community, that can help change the way people move in this world. So if you can afford it, please leave today. Everyone should leave here with a book in hand. And if you have someone who you think could benefit, a younger person maybe who might need this to use this as a guide to get ahead in life, buy it for somebody that you love. And let's support this brother here on his journey.